All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Autofocus. I am here today with my friend Adam. I met Adam at the podcast movement. We met in August, and it was really fun to meet you. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about you and what you do?
Hey, so awesome to be on the podcast. This is officially my first full-length podcast interview. And I'm a producer. I'm an audio engineer. I've been part of thousands of hours of podcasts, if not tens of thousands of hours of podcasts. And this is still my first interview. So this is super fun for me. I'm an audio engineer, turned into podcast producer all in one person. I call myself the podcast Adam because in college and high school and today, that's what people know me as, the podcast Adam, because that's really all I do. And I use my audio engineering knowledge to clean up audio, edit video, publish podcasts, publish social clips about those podcasts, repost clips about those podcasts, and even all the way to recording on location in person. So
that's amazing. Yes. Well, welcome to a podcast about podcasts. So yeah, it seems it fits. It tracks. So tell us a little bit about you. Tell us, how did you get involved in audio engineering?
So I was one of those kids that was in band from fourth grade all the way until high school. I was in the marching band. I was in the jazz band. And it was very fun. I made friends, but I knew I couldn't do that forever. I knew I couldn't make it as a career trumpet player. So I used that knowledge to kind of go into audio engineering. I initially went into art because I just wanted to draw stuff, and I realized I wasn't that good at it. So audio engineering, 100% realized I could do audio engineering and transfer that knowledge to podcasting. And this was in the mid 2010s when it was still blowing up, but I feel like it wasn't at its peak as it would be in 2020 or 2021 or something like that. And that's kind of how I started out, just, editing music and, mixing and mastering music and instruments and the other students at my college. And COVID happened, and all of a sudden the podcast work started to blow up. And 5 years later, here I am.
That's amazing. I love the marching band thing. My brother was the marching band guy. He was the musician of the family, and I was the artist. So yeah, it's funny. Like I have an art degree, and then he has an audio engineering degree. So it was kind of funny. He was a drummer though. He was in how did you get into trumpet?
I can't remember. It was some test in literally like the third or fourth grade, where they had us listen to different tones, and I think it was like how they feel or something like that, or which ones we heard the loudest or something. I think it was just based on, frequency response, individual frequency response or something like that. But they told me I'd be best at trumpet, but my dad had an old saxophone in the attic from when he was not a musician, but he had his old saxophone from when he was in, I think like the third or fourth grade, something around my age at the time. So I really wanted to play saxophone, but I couldn't get over the licking the reed and, putting it all together. And I like the 3 buttons on the trumpet because it was all you had to do was move your lips, which at this point in my life is harder than memorizing a bunch of combinations of keys. But at the time it was easier. So I stuck with it.
That's cool. That's amazing. Yeah, I did flute. I tried it. I tried band. That was hilarious. Yes. I remember it was the same thing where like not everybody got to do the flute because like you had to be able to blow and like have it make sound. And so I was there. They're like, oh, you can do it. You can play flute now. And I was like, cool. So yeah, like, okay. I wasn't into it, but yeah. But okay. So what do you do now? You said you got into podcasting during 2020. So had you already been like an engineer, like you already been like a career engineer, audio engineer for music, and then you switched to podcasting?
Not really. I was still in college. I was still mixing and mastering music. My degree was really just spending as much time as you can in the studio, going from rolling cable to telling people how you want things mixed and mastered and everything. So this was, I graduated the month after, I think it was like April 2020 is my official graduation. And I knew I wanted to go into podcasting. And during COVID, one of the producers that I follow on social media that produces one of my favorite shows posted about how they wanted to they had a podcast production class over Zoom that was like $20 a person. And they just wanted to make some extra scratch during COVID when everyone's jobs were, up in the air and everything. And I had known pretty much everything that they were going to cover, how to, open a digital audio workstation and create a track and everything. But I just wanted to ask all the questions I could at the end. And that's exactly what I did. And the teacher, really my friend Reed, shout out to Reed Pope. We kept in contact, and they wanted to become a TV writer and TV producer. So started to slide me all of the podcast gigs that they would have gotten, but didn't want because, they wanted to go into TV. So that's how I got my first few clients. And it was kind of a rocky start for me because I had never really done it before. And, I'd gone to school for audio engineering, but I didn't go to school for business relations or how to do freelance work during a global pandemic kind of thing.
Yeah, what to charge. Yeah,
exactly. So it was rocky at first, but some of my clients have stuck with me, and I've gained others on the way. And it's been a journey. I've been really fortunate to just pick up work right out of college.
That's amazing. What's the difference between voice recording, podcast recording, and music? Because I feel like they're very different.
Voice recording, I feel, is slightly easier because there's one direction you go in, and that's make it sound better, essentially. When a voice sounds like it's been recorded on a phonograph and when it's, been recorded on a Shure SM7B. But with music, there's, do you want it to sound like this? Do you want it to sound like this? Do you want it to sound like this? And then, you can mix something else, and then you may have a different opinion about, another instrument that you just mixed and spent a lot of time on. And I found that if you don't have a direction when you would go in, when you're mixing and mastering music, you could really go in circles. You can go all day changing the sound and changing the vibe of everything. But with dialogue, it's not easy, but it's straightforward.
True. Yeah, I guess it takes the thinking out of it. You're like, no, I just have to take this and make it sound better so people will listen to it. So it's not yeah, that's interesting. So cool. How has your business grown over the past five years?
I'm still freelance. So other than my clientele growing slightly, I wouldn't say it's grown too much. The growth I really see is in my podcast and their audience growth. I went from one or two clients, were super demanding because they hadn't really done a podcast before, all the way to working with people who are friends of the people I'd worked with before. So they're, more professional in terms of going to the studio and knowing what they're going to do, having the segments. And that's been really gratifying to, have that synergy with the client, with the host of the podcast, and to really streamline the workflow and the show. And ultimately the audience grows because of it, because of the consistency and the quality. So that's usually where I see my growth. One of the podcasts that I work on was acquired by iHeart-Radio, and we're still on there and publish every week. So that's kind of how I gauge my growth is, went from independent to iHeart-Radio. So
that's amazing. What was that like? Going in, going from you control everything to now there's iHeart-Radio.
It was awesome. They're super nice. I did have to re-interview because I was technically, I wasn't supposed to be brought on. Essentially, they were just acquiring the host of the podcast. Stradia Labs, the podcast that I'm talking about here, and the host George Severus and Sam Taggart were so nice as to bring me along because I had been working with them previously for about 2 years, and they knew my style, they knew my turnaround time, and I knew what they wanted in the podcast. And I did have to re-interview with iHeart-Radio. They, asked me to edit, what plugins I use, my workflow, that kind of thing. And, but I guess I passed, and I'm the editor for this podcast now, not the producer, but that's fine with me because there's also a pay increase beyond being on iHeart. So
that's awesome.
It was fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is you, how long have you been doing that?
That was one of my first few clients. I started working with them in 2021, and we were acquired in 2023, early 2023.
Nice. I'm sure everybody wants to know, like, how did they do that? Like, oh my God, I want to get acquired.
I think it helps to have famous friends being, the host of these podcasts. They're friends with, I don't know if I should say this publicly, but I call it like the C&D-list celebrity tier, where it's like the friends of the writers of the people on SNL.
Okay, yeah.
It's not exactly famous, but it's like 4 clicks away kind of thing.
They like know they're in the same circles. Like they know who you
They
need
go to the
know.
SNL after parties. That's the
Yeah.
kind
Oh, that'd be fun. That would be so fun.
exactly right. So I don't think that hurt at all. And they're super funny. They live right in the middle of Brooklyn, and they had written for several like online magazines. So they had pedigree as the New York metropolitan area, and they're super funny gay guys. So that always helps.
Yeah, totally helps. That's amazing. Okay, so this talk since this is about equipment, what kind of equipment do you use? Like, what is it you use, and what would you recommend to someone just starting out?
When I just started out, I was super into like PC gaming. So I had this huge PC that was like super powerful. And that helped my editing, but it's not portable and you can't take it everywhere. And I realized having portability is paramount for me. So I have this MacBook Pro here that I'm using to record this podcast on. I tried to, I went for like the 5 years ago model, but the higher end. So it wasn't too expensive, but it's pretty powerful. I'm using the Zoom Q2N 4K as my 4K webcam that also doubles as a stereo microphone, which is super fun. That comes in handy in a pinch on location recordings. My Focusrite 2i4 for my at-home microphone recordings here that I failed to set up before this recording.
It's all good.
And one of my most handy devices here, actually, the Zoom PodTrak P4, which is super amazing. It's 4 XLR inputs.
Nice.
And it runs off of 2 AA batteries.
How long does that last?
I think like 6 hours, depending on the battery.
Amazing.
I use.
On AA batteries?
Oh yeah, it's awesome. I just in case, you can also do like a external power cable as well. So I usually have both of those going when I record. It has like a little memory card slot and a small compressor. It doesn't have a great compressor, but it has a small compressor in there too. And it's only like $125. I think you can get it for like $100 now, because I just saw a few weeks ago they're releasing like the new model that has their like AI sound cancellation built into it, which I might look into. But even just this little device, fits in my pocket almost and gives me like studio quality recordings. And you can, plug 4 of these studio microphones in there, or any XLR microphones. And that has been a lifesaver, because I used to have to bring my laptop and my, audio interface and a million cables, and it was a hassle, as my clients can attest. But the first time I showed up with the PodTrak P4, they were like, "Oh, that's all you're bringing today?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's actually all I need to bring today." And
that's amazing.
They did not trust me at first until I started recording afterwards.
I can see that. Yeah. God, and our kit is like, I can't even pick it up by myself. It's so big. It's got like all these like 4 stands and SMB7s and like all like, there's a Rodecaster Pro 2 in there. And I was just like, God, this is not fun to take on location. So, yeah, we even have a camera, but the camera is like this big. Like, it's just like a little Mevo, it's the audio equipment that is like heavy and the biggest. So like, I love like that you just like pared down, and just cause you like, how often do you go on low location?
I would say at least twice a month, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on how often the client wants to record in person.
That's cool.
But yeah,
so how big is your pack? Like when you pack it all up, is it like you can fit it in like a backpack? Yeah.
It does fit in a backpack. The case for the P4 is just this big, about the size of my head.
God. Yeah, I need one of those. It's like, my gosh, we're going on location more, and it's so much. I can't even. I'm like, I need help picking it up and taking it out of the car, and I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, we got to find out something smaller.
The microphones that I use, I just got this like little tiny suitcase that has 3 Samson R21s, which they're just dynamic microphones, but I don't know if this is fit on the camera, but there's 3 of them in there. And so I fit the PodTrak in my bag, and then all the cables. And it's generally good for what I need. Sometimes I'll pack my laptop just in case, of course, extra cables, maybe an extra microphone, but it's rare that I record 4 people at once. But I am prepared for everything. I try to be, so. Right.
Yes. I know we tell our clients, like our studios, we're like, okay, no more than 4. And then they show up with like 8 people. And you're like, awesome. This one's going to be great to edit. Like
they'd be leaning into the microphone close together.
They don't even lean. They're just like, there's a guy here and a guy here. And this is the mic. And you just gotta, and you're like, well, we'll fix that. So yeah, no, I think if we showed you some of the stuff that we deal with all the time, because podcast videos is like you come in, you sit down, you like you don't have to worry about the tech, and we handle it all for you. Which also means we don't train you how to use it. You just come in and sit down, and and even if we do tell you, we're like, okay, so you like if you're sharing a mic, like move it over to the person that's talking, and then they don't. And so, yeah, if you saw some of the things that happen, like there's a guy that like lean back, like, and like he'll just talk, and you're like, my favorite is when they lean out of the camera angle and they're far away from the mic, no. And then and that's when they say something amazing, you're like, oh, that's going to be that's the clip,
I find sometimes when people are super egregious with that, I'll make them wear headphones that like feed directly into the mic so they hear like how far away they are from the mic. That's good, yeah. I find that helps sometimes, not always.
I know. And we tried that with some of our clients, and like one guy, he always wears a hat. And so he was like, I don't want to wear headphones, because like he's like, I don't want to take my hat off, but we're like, well, just wear them underneath. And he's like, this is uncomfortable. So then we just so now we don't require anybody to wear headphones, so no one knows what it sounds like. They have no idea. which brings me to the next question. So what are some tips? So what are some tips that you would give for when you're recording audio? So like, for all of our clients who are leaning all the way back and doing all this stuff, where should they be away from the mic? Like, what are some tips?
First of all, distance from the mic. I learned in school, from instruments and everything, that it's always like a hang 10, pinky and the thumb, extended as far as you can, not just like, straight like this, like as far away as you can, and then pinky on the mic and thumb at your bottom lip, and that's really what it is. You'll get the most consistent audio quality. If someone yells or is super loud, they're usually enough distance away to where you can cut it down in the mix. It's gonna clip in the moment, but you can cut it down in the mix. And if they talk quietly, then you can really jack it up and hear everything they're saying.
You'll be able to hear it. Yeah. Yeah, my favorite is this guy. He like leans back, and then he's like, so do you taste this and that? And he just has this really low voice, and I'm like, I'm sorry, editors. I just
got to wear a lavalier at that point.
Yeah, and that we're fighting. Yeah, they're like, no, it has to be SM7s, and you're like, okay. Yeah, it's fun. Any other tips that you have? Because I know, I'm sure there's plenty. So yeah, I love wearing the headphones, like making people wear headphones. But is there anything that people can do if they're not going to wear headphones, or like even like soundproofing? Like, because I know that, if you're in your kitchen and you're trying to record a podcast, it's probably different than when you're in a studio.
Soundproofing really for me is like 75-80% of the battle. You can use almost any mic you'd like, as long as you have proper soundproofing. Here I'm sitting next to almost a wall of soundproofing, the padded stuff. And I'm just using my iPhone to record as a microphone, even though I wanted to use my, studio quality microphone. So it's all about, I just hit my desk. It's all about the environment that you're in and making sure it's not echoey. Everyone's pet peeve is when you're on the phone and someone walks into their kitchen or bathroom and it's just tile everywhere, and somehow your phone is only picking up the echo and not what they're saying. It's arguably even worse on a podcast. Speaking of podcast movement, one of the best tips that I think they gave on like the intro day, like the intro keynote. And it's super obvious, but putting it into words really hammers it home, is don't give people a reason to skip your podcast, because most people are looking for a reason to skip off or listen to something else. Or, you know, when people say, I'll give this a try, they're not locked in for the whole thing. They're only there to, you know, see what the quality is and if you're funny or if you have something interesting to say. And, you know, you can't give them that reason to skip off. So just soundproofing everything and, you know, having at least a decent microphone is ideal. Some people I find want to jump right to the nice microphone, and that kind of tells me they're not that serious about this. Some people, I'll tell them, or they'll say, oh, I have a idea for a podcast. Can you help me record a podcast? Or can you tell me what microphone to buy or whatever? And they'll say, okay, well, let's start the podcast. Let's, you know, hear you come up with a concept that you can do at least 20 or so times, maybe record a sample episode or a trailer, just on your voice memos. Just record on your voice memo, send it over to me, and we'll figure it out from there. If they don't want to do that, then that kind of tells me like,
yeah, like you're going to have to talk into a microphone and tell your story. Like
you're going to have to, you know, put more work into it other than getting on the phone. You're going to have to soundproof a bit. You're going to have to treat your space and, you know your workflow before you really get into it.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause we've, I know that there's always something, you know, when I was teaching people about cameras and things like that, like you can have the nicest camera in the world, but if you don't use it correctly, and if you don't know how to use it, it's not going to help you. It doesn't make your pictures better. It will make them worse. And so it's like, yeah, it's like, so you start with what you know, like your cell phone, and then, you know, take pictures with that. And if you really, and like you get good at that, then you can start moving up, you know, because like you can have a really nice camera, but if you don't understand how light works, or if you don't understand, you know, like what the difference between a shutter speed and aperture, ISO, like if you don't know what any of that means, like it's not going to help you.
I think 6 or so years ago, I was fiddling with my parents' nice DSLR camera, and it was me and my girlfriend. We were posing in front of the fireplace. We had the timer all set, and then I was looking at the photos a day later. They were just all out of focus. I couldn't see anything. It was awful. It was just like a blob of color on the screen. I was so ashamed.
Like, this is great.
Small screen on the camera, it looks fine.
Yeah. And then you zoom it in, you're like, oops. Yeah.
It was awful. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But audio is the same thing. So, but I do also like, you know, it's like you want to like make sure that you get it done, like you do it, like like you want to record it as nice as possible. So like, that's what I love about the soundproofing. And like I've used my car before soundproofing. Yeah. And so, I mean, like that's because like maybe if people are like don't want to like hang up blankets or do anything like in their own house, like you can literally sit in your car.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, is they're made to be soundproofed. And I don't know if people, you know, really realize that. Of course, they realize it's quieter when you're in the car, but they put a lot of, you know, design into soundproofing the car. So if you don't have a sound booth in your house, your car is pretty much the closest thing you can get to it.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. Okay. And then I want to talk to you about editing. So like there's recording the audio, and this is like some tips for people when they're trying to record it. Now, how about some tips for editing? So like people that are like trying to get into like editing, what are some good tips?
I feel like the most basic tip every editor learns or is told by someone else who doesn't edit is always to edit, you know, backwards on the timeline. For me, hopefully this is self-explanatory to everyone listening or watching, but you know, when you get your edits back, you send your client your, you know, finalized edit, either video or audio. They may say, can we cut from here to here? Can we cut this out? Can we cut that out? Start at the end, start at their last note, the furthest into the episode. That way, when you edit, all of their previous time codes are still applicable, and you're not messing yourself up and having to listen to everything. You know, oh, they said it was around 43 minutes, 11 seconds, but I cut out 5 minutes and 47 seconds and then 2.5 minutes here. So I have to do the math on the episode time and subtract 13 minutes and then go to here and listen to make sure I find the right sentence. No, yeah. I've done it to myself as a starting out editor, and I had to either, you know, restart a save file from earlier or, you know, from scratch. That being said, when someone told me to do that several years into my career, I was more mad than I should have been.
I know, you're like, I didn't even think of that. Like, I've never thought of that. I guess I've never edited anything that long. Like, I get, but that podcast can go like, like over an hour or an hour.
Yeah. So always edit backwards. Don't mess yourself up. And the other note I had here was, and I think I mentioned this a few times, is know your workflow. Don't be surprised by what someone asks you to do. If you're advertising yourself as audio producer, video editor, whatever, don't be surprised when someone says, oh, I have like a 5-person video podcast that's 3 hours long. Can you edit this for me? Of course, that's a huge ask, and that's not something I would like to do. But
yeah, especially if it's like, it's about like finance. Like, what is it about? Do I want to listen to this? Like, tax advice. You're like, oh God.
I have templates for every situation that I work with regularly. I'm not much of a video editor, so I try to have all the audio templates. I have, like the intro music, the outro, already, at the beginning and end of the session with the appropriate plugins I know they'll probably need because they always record in their house and their house is that kind of thing. So, for every project I work on, always have a template. Don't be surprised by the workflow. Know what you're going to do from start to finish, at least when you have the files in the session, you know how they sound, because I've had this situation where sometimes it's labeled one thing and it's actually a different recording, or it's, 2 people on the same file and you can't, split them apart for whatever reason. So once you have your files in the session, know how it's going to go and, master your workflow.
Yeah. When you say workflow, what do you mean? Like, it's just kind of like how it goes in the editing, like in the software?
I guess everything. For me, I spend most of my time editing because I edit a lot. So I get the audio files from, any kind of cloud service. It's usually a cloud service. No one's sending USBs in the mail, but download the files, listen to them, make sure they're the right labels, make sure they're the right person, as silly as that sounds. Put them in your audio workstation, line everything up, and if there's any inconsistencies in the volume, like if they get up and leave for the bathroom or something like that, or if they lean away from the mic or something like that, some host stuff that always happens inevitably during the recordings, make sure to take care of that first. I usually take a listen to the full thing before I do any edits, or if I do, I just put a marker in the session to know this is where I want to make an edit.
Like if someone had a snack in the middle of it?
If they had a snack, or
like,
if I know they're going
we did a live webinar, and this guy, he wasn't even on mic, but he didn't mute himself, and he ate, he pulled out a granola bar, and it was one of those crunchy ones. And you could just hear him eating the granola bar while someone else is talking. And luckily I was in the other room, so I had to put my head in and be like, hey, like, put yourself on mute. So that would have been fun to edit later.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I find when I have to fight myself sometimes, because I'll take, line everything up and then start to listen and then go, oh, it sounds fine. Let me start to edit here. And then come to realize like, oh, this is still the pre-roll, or they wanted to cut this whole thing out, or the guest told the story. It was a great story, but then they realized like they gave away someone's address inadvertently or something like that. And I had to cut the whole thing. So I just spent 20 minutes editing something that's going to be on the cutting room floor or whatever. So, take a full listen, and then, either mark the session or do smaller edits and go from there. Communication with the hosts, if you work with the hosts, is paramount as well, because they're the ones that, give the edits and everything. Most of my pod Tuesdays, so I try to have the rough drafts for the hosts at least by Thursday or Friday, so they can have the weekend to listen and give me edits. And then Monday is the first business day to get everything done. So that's usually when I'm the most busiest, because that's when everyone listens, even though I give them the, how it works.
Give you multiple days, and they're waiting the day before, and can you make these edits? It's
So
not a lot of
Monday's
edit.
usually business.
And you're like, it is.
So I don't plan a lot of things for Mondays nowadays. So that's going to be one by mastering your workflow, knowing when to, send things off, knowing when to take time off to do the edits, and communicate with the hosts, because sometimes it just becomes here's the podcast, thanks. Here's the podcast, thanks. Here's the podcast, thanks. Email exchange. You really want to communicate. I try to say like, oh, I love this episode. If I'm not communicating with the host in person, if that is, love this episode. This is a great guest. Love this part. Try to communicate and
that you actually listened. Yeah.
Right. That goes a long way.
Awesome. Well, that's really good. That is really good advice. And I always end this on one last thing. So if there was like one piece of really good advice, I know we just went over like all the advice, but if there is one piece of like really important advice you would give to someone who is just starting out, what advice would you give them?
Two things, I guess. The first is kind of going back to what I said earlier. If someone asks you to start a podcast with them or help them start a podcast from scratch, you're not taking over editing for them or something like that. Like I said, make sure they record like a sample episode or a trailer or a proof of concept at least on their phone. Just to prove that, they can do the work for themselves. You don't want to work for someone that doesn't do work for themselves. Essentially, that's kind of my philosophy. If they pay attention of what you tell them of, microphone placement, soundproofing and all that, and they, take all that to heart, then, okay, they don't even have to be serious about it. They just have to be committed to doing a podcast and not just treating it as like a phone call, or I just want to hop on the phone with friends and have it be recorded, that kind of thing. Don't do work for someone that doesn't work for themselves. So just get that proof of concept on the phone or in whatever setup they have or are trying to have, kind of thing. Excuse me. And the other thing is just shouting out my plugins, I guess, because I swear during the iHeart interview that I had to re-interview to, become the editor for them, they were waiting for me to say I use the RX suite of plugins. I don't think I would have gotten the job if I didn't say plugins. They kind of asked me like, so what plugins do you use? Like waiting for this answer. And so shout out the RX suite. I think they're up to like RX 11 now. I think I looked it up right before I hopped on. They're up to like RX 11 now, and they have all the AI stuff in there, but I use RX 8, I believe. And that is just a lifesaver in terms of dialogue enhancement and dialogue cleanup. The voice denoiser, I think it's called, is like the main one that just kind of takes care of pretty much everything. They have a plugin for like breath. If someone's going like every time they start a sentence,
they smack their lips.
Yeah. Lip smacks.
Oh, no, that drives me crazy.
They have the de-esser, which is, when someone has the super whistly front teeth, that gets rid of that. And there's no shame in there, but it's just the microphone that really is taking the brunt of that.
It'll pick it up. Yeah.
Yeah. And the one I'm still looking for, and you can kind of get the effect, but if someone has like a microphone buzz or like a fridge buzzing, that is one of the hardest things for me to get rid of, I find. Even though there are like de-hummer plugins, it is noticeably being affected. You can tell like someone's having their voice treated. It's almost like, not to bring this guy up, but I know the president's giving these interviews on like the tarmac and like, the middle of the plane while the door is open and, outside of the helicopter, like all these, but you can tell now that these journalists are starting to like put, live vocal denoisers on their microphones, because some sentences will sound different than others. And sometimes he sounds super nasally and sometimes he doesn't. And that's kind of fun to see a live audio engineering thing going on. But yeah, that's a long way to say RX suite from Isotope. It is on the pricier side, but I know they have like multiple like huge discount days per year. I think there's like a holiday sale, like a 4th of July and like a spring something or other, but don't buy it at full price if you can. But if you do it, it is still worth it because it did help me get this job. So,
There you
and
go.
it is worth it. It does the job perfectly. So
That's awesome.
definitely.
Well, good. Well, thank you so much, Adam, for being here. And I just want to let you have one last plug. Let's plug you, the podcast, Adam. Where can people find you, and how do they get in touch with you?
I'm fortunate enough to have everything be the same. I'm the podcast Adam everywhere, all social medias. And my website is thepodcastadam.com. It has all my podcasts that I work on, past and present, on there. And you can submit me a message on there. No one's ever done that in the half decade I've had my website. But I'm all over social media at Podcast Adam.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. This has been a lot of fun, and I think I'm still doing the hang 10, so I'm doing good. All right. Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. This is awesome.